Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of a Fortean review.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing fantastic. You didn't ask. Heads up.
Say, I didn't ask. All right. So, if you guys remember last time we were talking about or reviewing Jeff Saylor's Alien Chronicles, he had some pretty interesting stories.
Yeah, really fun stuff. Just to kind of, I guess, go over a little bit like what you can talk a little bit about what he talked about, but I guess our initial impressions were really good storyteller, really interesting stuff he experienced while he was working at that ranch in Colorado, right?
Is that where it was? Buffalo Ranch, Colorado.
Buffalo Ranch. Lots of really, really interesting, cool experiences. So yeah, I'm excited to get back and hear the rest of his stories. How many stories does he have total? Do you know?
I think I counted like 8, so we went through 5 of them. So there's 3 more, but I know one of them, the last one, is pretty long. I would say it's like 11 minutes long.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So most of these have been like 4 minutes to 5, and so that one's almost triple length.
It's a good one, I bet.
yeah. It's him and the FBI, but that'll be a fun one.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite one? Or what was your takeaway, I guess, from last week?
Oh wow. So I guess takeaway though, he seems very credible. One of those like salt of the earth kind of guys that we were talking about. Like, he seems he doesn't seem prone to be like exaggerating that kind of stuff. And I guess the stories he's telling, like the most interesting one that I found was the probably the orbs with the cop, like, because that one had several witnesses to that experience.
Yeah.
Like there was a cop with doing, I guess, like a ride along, and he had somebody riding along with him.
Yeah, they were like a young deputy or something
like that. Yeah. And so they're riding along in the dirt roads out in that ranch, and then all of a sudden they just come like blazing down the trail, and there's, what do you say, like 5, 6 orbs following them or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, it's
kind of several. Yeah, they're closing in on him until he gets into the ranch property, or like the gated area or something like that. And then they kind of just dissipate. But I thought that was really interesting. It was like, again, like, this guy telling the story is one thing, but like you have other witnesses to this one experience and their law enforcement. There's another layer to that, like credibility, when it's like law enforcement experiencing this stuff. Yeah. So that was probably the most interesting story, I think, for me.
Yeah. What about you? I thought they were all pretty interesting, but I think what creeps me out the most is the triangle symbol. Like, seeing that everywhere. Like, to me, that's still
creepy.
Yeah. Like waking up and seeing that in your living room.
Yeah.
Or your kitchen. Like, that's still like, wow, that's a little too personal. You know, you're in my personal space there, Mr. Alien.
Yeah.
I'd like you to please back off. Knock next time.
Personal space invader.
Wait for me to let you in. But if I choose to. But yeah, that's the one that really stuck out to me, I guess.
Yeah.
And just how they would mark, you know, the dead cows or the dead cattle with their orange triangle, orange-red triangle, and do that with the fetus too.
Yeah, that's very creepy. Like the occult implications of an alien species or something. Like, it's, I don't know what it is, but it's just very ominous. Like, you think it's definitely just be ominous enough to dismember and like do all this stuff to cattle, but then you mark them with this weird symbol, or triangle symbol.
Yeah. All right, so ready to get into this?
Yeah.
All right. This one is, I can't remember the name of this episode. I saw an alien starship. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Howdy, folks. Here's another alien story from the Alien Chronicles. And I've mentioned several times in some previous videos about this alien stuff that I never saw an alien and I never saw a starship or anything like that. Well, I almost did see a starship, and I'm going to tell you that story tonight, where I almost think I saw a starship. But anyway, here's what happened. I was headed to town one night, and it was about 2 miles to get out of the ranch, and then you're on a county road, which took you out to the highway. And along that county road was a 1,200-acre pasture that we used for calves when we'd wean calves and set them out there. And it was a beautiful pasture. That's 2 square miles a section, so it's 1,200 acres. And it had hills all around the 3 sides of it and a big hollow basin in the middle. And you couldn't quite see into the bottom of that bowl unless you actually drove into the pasture. But we'd wean the calves off and put them in there where their mothers couldn't hear them crying. And we'd leave them all winter. And there was 80 to 100 head of antelope wintered in there. It was a real protected area. It was a real nice pasture. So I'm driving alongside that one night, headed to town to go dancing. And I look over into that big pasture, and here's all these flashing lights. And all the lights we'd been chasing for a number of years were those glowing green Jeep headlight looking things. And so here tonight are all these blue and red and green and white. And I couldn't see the source of the light, but I could see it lighting up those hilltops that surrounded that basin. And there was a bunch of them, and they were some kind of bright. And I didn't have the nerve to drive in there by myself. I had a single action cowboy gun in the truck and none of my assault stuff for chasing aliens. So I was a little bit spooked, and I just kind of drove by those lights, and I get down to the highway, and it's dark now. And there's a state highway crew working out there, and they're doing what's called chip and seal. I don't know if they do it all over the country, but out west, what they do when a road starts wearing out, they spray a layer of hot tar and then a thin layer of gravel on top instead of tearing up the whole road. And they usually do it at night so they're not blocking traffic. So I no sooner hit the highway, and here's the chip and seal crew, and I ease up to them and try to act calm. And I asked them if they noticed anything going on, and they said, "Oh my God, there's all these flashing lights, and there must be something going on over those hills because there's, emergency lights and this and that." And we visited for a minute, and I didn't say anything about I lived there or whatnot. So I turned around and eased back up towards that pasture. And I was spooked that night. I just didn't have the nerve to drive in there alone in the dark, and there was just too much going on. So I got up on a hilltop, and I just started watching those lights, and they're just going crazy. And I mean, it takes a good light to light up a 2-mile wide basin out in the prairie. So I'm sitting there wondering, what should I do, this and that. And all of a sudden, way out to the south, I can see this amber light glowing. And it's moving, and I think it's coming towards me, but your depth perception is 0 at dark. You're out there. I mean, you couldn't even see a yard light from another ranch. So you don't know if something's 20 miles away or a mile away, but it's getting bigger and bigger. And after about 5 minutes, I realized, well, that thing's coming straight towards me, and it's moving real slow. And it was so unusual because it was nothing like the lights we'd been chasing for all those years out there. And then as it got closer, 2 more lights appeared out to the side, the same amber color and maybe only half as big. I'm looking at that, and I've never seen this before. And it gets closer and closer. And now this took 15 minutes to give you an idea either of the distance or how slow it was going. Like I say, there's no depth perception at night out there. Anyway, 2 more lights appeared, little tiny ones out to the side. And it's coming right at me. Well, I'm sitting in the middle of nowhere. All I can do is run home, and I'm not any safer there. Aliens have been in my refrigerator, for Christ's sake. So I just sat there and kind of toughed it out, and that thing's coming right over me. And I'm thinking, should I floor it? What do I do? And the 2 outside lights flicked once and went out. These 2 flickered and went out, and then the big one went out. So I'm sitting there looking at nothing but stars, and I thought, well, I better check this out. So I opened the door and step out of the truck, and I look up. And I don't notice anything at first, and then all of a sudden I realize all the stars have disappeared above me. And there's this crisp, straight line right across my line of vision. And there's that void, I'll call it. I didn't see anything physical, just a black void. As it came over that truck, the stars just disappeared in a straight line. And then that thing's over me. And I was on a battleship once down in Alabama, just taking a tour, and this thing was twice the size of a battleship.
Wow.
I mean, biggest thing I ever saw in my life. And again, all I'm seeing is a hole in the sky. I'm not seeing metal or anything shiny. I can't see stars out to either side, so I don't know how wide it is. And now I'm ready to flee. I'm ready to panic at this point. And I notice out to the south end of this void, all of a sudden the lights are starting to appear. And again, it's just in a razor sharp line as that thing passes over me. And then finally, I could see a whole sky full of stars and no black void. And that was kind of it for that night. And I got to tell you, that scared me something terrible. I thought, I don't feel good going back to the house. First of all, my house was back north where that void was traveling. So I thought, I'm just going to go on into town like I had planned. So I get out on the highway and I'm going down the road about 60 miles an hour. And, I'm kind of paying attention. And I look out to the north and here comes this big white light and a smaller light. And the trajectory, they're going to meet me at traveling. Now, here again is another unique light. I've never seen a bright white light out there. We've had green and the blue and red, and then those amber lights that just went over me, and now I got these two white lights. So I kind of kick that truck into gear and start flying, and you could tell those lights change, and they're going to cut me off. So then I slam on the brakes and kind of start backing up, and those lights change, and they're coming this way. And finally, I just said the hell with it, and I just floored that truck. And I've probably never gone over 90 miles an hour in my life. And I was well over 100. And here they come, and I know they're going to catch me. And it seemed like they were just no more than a quarter mile out there. Last time I looked, and I'm paying attention to the road, and I looked back, gone. No more lights. I went on into town, and I was so freaked out that night, I didn't even have a cocktail. I drank coffee for 2 or 3 hours and finally headed back home. But, boy, I tell you, I didn't get much sleep that night. But anyway, that's as close as I ever come to seeing an alien starship. I don't know what it was, but it was big.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really cool encounter.
Imagine something that huge just hovering right over you.
With no sound, right? He didn't mention anything about a sound, just
no sound, just a black void.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of makes me think of that metal, or actually I guess it's a paint that they came up with a few years ago that's supposed to be the blackest black surface that we've ever created, that it doesn't cause any reflection, like light doesn't escape its surface. They're using it in what's it, like NASA or something like that. I don't know like for what purpose exactly, but they showed it and it looks like just dead pixels on your screen whenever they show it, but people can interact with it, they can move around on it and stuff. It's just so weird. And like seeing that, how it looks like a void. It looks like it's something that like reality just doesn't exist in that one spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what that makes me think of. Like that's kind of their cloaking device. You travel out in the darkness of space. You just need to be black.
Yeah.
You just need to be dark.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, that's definitely an experience, man. I just can't imagine something that huge right over you. The feeling of dread that must have come over him. Like,
because I mean, what are you going to do?
Right. Almost inescapable, because that thing's like, he said he couldn't see the ends because he couldn't see the stars in either end.
Yeah.
Yeah. That just must have been massive. Like a football field hovering over you.
Yeah, that's scary. That could be one of those situations where like it doesn't really matter what your skill level is. Like this guy's obviously a very handy person, like an outdoorsman kind of guy. He can handle himself in just about any situation. I mean, I don't know what he could have done.
Yeah.
In that situation, they decided to descend on him or pick him up or do whatever they wanted.
Right. I like that story. That was an interesting one.
Yeah. And again, those orbs that just disappear, they kind of fade in and out. Right. I wonder if they're fading in and out of being lit, or are they fading in and out like interdimensionally? Are they kind of going in between like a plane of existence or something?
Yeah, or are they just cloaking? Are they just
cloaking? Yeah.
Are they still there but invisible?
Yeah, they like these lights. I wonder what they are.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I want to say it was Tony Merkel who was kind of playing with the idea of like maybe these things are like interdimensional vehicles. that beings write in to cross between dimensions. Because because you hear stories of like there's orbs and all of a sudden there's like Bigfoot, in that area. Like, is it like a means of transportation between dimensions?
Is that the only way they can come through or come across?
Right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. My initial thought is just like fairy lights, those kinds of things. Like, how connected are they to those myths and legends?
Yeah,
like those lights on the mountains.
Right. They call them spook lights is another name for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right. You ready for the next one?
Ready for the next one.
Right. Stalking an alien.
Good evening, folks. I'm going to tell a story tonight about aliens, and I'm calling it Stalking an Alien. And one night, I did. I thought I did. I've told you before in a number of these stories, I never actually laid eyes on one, but I kind of got obsessed with finding out what was going on out there after 4 or 5 years of this nonsense. I had to find out, and I'm a hunter at heart. The whole idea of hunting for me is the stalking and matching wits, and I've spent hours in one stalk crawling on my belly to get up on a bedded deer or an elk. And never mattered if I got the shot or got the animal. It's that intensity of that stalk. And I can't describe it to you. There's adrenaline and your senses are so heightened. You can hear the slightest rustle in the grass, the change of the breeze, water being disturbed a quarter mile away, and even your sense of smell is acute. I can't tell you how many times I've smelled a rutting bull elk a half mile away before I got to him. So to me, that's the essence of hunting, and it's the adrenaline surge you get when you're doing it. And that's what happened that night. So we'd had kind of a bad week that week. I know we had at least one buffalo killed and mutilated, and we'd had the sheriff's deputies out chasing lights at least one night, and those nights were insane. You'd have those glowing green lights out there, and we all had radios, and a couple times we had 5 vehicles out there. There'd be a couple ranch trucks, a couple sheriff deputies, maybe the sheriff himself. That light would be leading us all over the ranch. And I know they were doing at least 100 because there was nights I was doing 70 and 80 across those pastures, and the sheriffs were too. And these lights defied the laws of physics. They'd just be flying along, and you're not gaining on them at 80 miles an hour, and they'd make a 90-degree turn without ever slowing down. Just boom. You just, it'd take you a quarter mile to turn a truck out there in the sagebrush at 70 miles an hour. Or they'd just be creeping along real slow and accelerate to 100 miles an hour in the blink of an eye, or vice versa. They'd be doing 100 and just stop cold. And that in itself was pretty spooky. Anything that can defy the law of physics will catch your attention. I guarantee you, So anyway, we'd had this bad week, and I was in my black ninja outfit, and I'd told you in another story where the ranch owners, we'd lost $50,000, $60,000 worth of animals. And up to this point, he gave us money, and we had assault rifles and night vision scopes and binoculars, everything. So I was out hunting aliens one night, and I was driving along the north end of the ranch. I'm probably 5-6 miles from my house, and I see one of these lights easing over a hill into a basin. I thought, oh man, I got you this time. So I drove over to within about a mile of that ridge line and shut the truck off and got out and hiked about that next mile over there and got on my belly when I come over the ridge. I didn't want to be skylined against the starlight there. Look way out in that pasture and put up my night vision stuff, and there's a little bit bigger than man-sized object out there about 3/4 of a mile away. Man, I can't tell you the excitement after 4 or 5 years of chasing these lights, and I think I've got you. So I crawl on my belly through the prairie grass and the sagebrush, and it probably took 2 hours to go that mile. Probably doesn't sound like much to the average person, but go lay on the grass and try and call 100 yards without raising your head off the ground. It's exhausting. And when you're stalking an alien, it's emotionally draining too, So finally I worked my way up there, and I am some kind of excited. and I'm exhausted. And I get to within 100 yards of this object, and it hasn't moved. And I'm thinking, finally. So I get that gun all set up. And now, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, the sharpest knife in the drawer, or the starriest, brightest star in the sky. I'm smart enough to know that if these are aliens, their technology is probably way past me out here with night vision and a Chinese rifle. But I'm going to do my best. I'm going to find out what's going on. So I get the tripod set, and I got that object in my scope, and I must lay there for another hour. And try that. Try laying still for an hour on the grass some night. And finally, I'm so cramped up and wore out, and adrenaline's kind of dropping. And so I finally come up on one knee with that gun, still watching it, no reaction. Finally, after a few minutes, I raised to my feet, still nothing. And now I'm getting a little freaked out. This thing isn't moving or worried about me. So I'd take a couple steps, and then I started yelling. Nothing. I kept marching and marching. Finally, I get up to about 20 feet, and I look, and it's a goddamn pine tree stump about that tall out in the pasture. I'd been out there 100 times and couldn't remember that stump. But anyway, I started laughing at myself until I was crying because I was totally exhausted. Adrenaline and excitement and the crawling on my belly. But I wanted to tell that story because it's kind of humorous, but also to make the point that people must say they've seen aliens, and God bless them if they have, but a lot of times what you think you're seeing might not be what's really there. And I just wanted to tell that story.
That's good.
Yeah, I like that one.
A little bit of humility there.
Yeah.
That is another thing about the way he's telling these stories, is that he's like, that story could have very easily ended with him seeing an alien and then it running off, and it's just very convenient that he just didn't have any way of proving that. But it went the more honest way of like, well, I just, it wasn't an alien, it was just a tree stump or something.
Right.
And these stories, they don't seem over the top fantastical to the point where you can't believe them. There's another thing about the way he's telling these stories, is they're very believable. Like, I saw most of this, or I saw some of this, or I never saw what did this, but I saw, this stuff happen.
Right. Yeah, I can just imagine maybe the relief along with some frustration that you just spent 3 hours stalking what you thought was an alien, only to find a tree stump.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that story. It was a good story.
Yeah.
So I guess another thought that I was having while you're queuing up the next one, I guess, the possibility, I guess, of those lights being what drones are to us.
Yeah.
I was looking at, I must have been like last 4th of July or something, but I don't remember where it was that they put on like a show. Actually, you know what? It was for Chinese New Year. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, yeah.
Where they actually made like a dragon out of drones. Like they programmed them all to fly, to make a shape in the sky, but they were all glowing, and so it looks like this dragon made of light just like floating around.
Right.
Beautiful work. But and I started thinking about like, man, drones are like, I remember when drones first came out, they're like $1,000, $10,000 to buy one. And now you can find them for $5 in like a bin at Walmart. Like, that technology just aged so quickly.
Yeah.
Like it makes me wonder, like, how long has the government had drone technology before they told us they had, or before they told their own men they have drone technology, And it makes me wonder about, not obviously all of these lights that they're seeing, but like some of them. Like, I wonder how much of this is just testing ground stuff. Like we were talking about last time, like if you're going to test something out in the middle of anywhere, it would be in the middle of nowhere with, just people living off the grid that you can easily dismiss. Just if they see something, they think they saw something, they didn't really see anything. But, you get to test out, what is the future possibly of drone technology? I don't know. Is it something that can that is the size of like maybe a pellet or like a BB or something, but emits like a massive ball of light that you can just fly around anywhere. Just another idea for it, but it makes me wonder.
No, something that Tony had mentioned some time ago is under the subject of Bigfoot was, a lot of people think, well, it's just an ape that we haven't discovered yet. Some people say, well, it's this genetically engineered thing that the government has made. And other people think, well, it's an alien from another planet. And so, like, Tony's like, why not all three? What if some of the things we're seeing is something that was made in a lab by the government that they're testing out? And what if some of the stuff we've seen is supernatural?
Yeah.
But coming from another dimension, but
right.
But yeah, and that's part of the Fortean way of thinking too, is it got to be open to all possibilities.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't know. And so that means it could be literally anything or any combination of those things. That's another thing I was thinking about a couple of months ago too, is like, well, like you say you saw a Bigfoot that looked one particular way. Someone else say they saw a Bigfoot that looks another particular way. Well, we're calling them Bigfoot, but until we like get to analyze them specifically, that's like saying I saw a deer or a buck, and then I saw a moose from far away. They kind of look the same. They both, have like these mousy faces with big antlers, and we're kind of describing them as the same thing, like a tree horn or something. We don't, because we've never, come into contact with them until we get, real scientific data on what they are. Maybe they are different things. Maybe they're somehow related, but we don't know. Right. It could be a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we don't know what it is that people are seeing, and we don't know what it is. Where they come from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So really interesting stuff to delve into. That's why I like doing this stuff, is we get to learn a little bit more about what could be out there.
Yeah, and then it just makes you think, makes you wonder.
Right.
Makes you speculate. And that's the fun part about all this, is speculation.
The speculation part of it. Yeah, absolutely. There be monsters.
Yep. All right. This next one is called Dead Buffalo in the Horse Barn.
All right.
All right. Anything else before we move on?
No, I think I'm good.
All right.
Evening, folks. I got another buffalo alien story from back when I was a buffalero. I want to clear something up about that term. I mentioned that in an earlier video about those of us that work buffalo, we called ourselves buffaleros versus cowboys. And I realized all my friends are cowboys, and I might have insulted them. So I want to clear something up. Cowboys have an amazing set of skills. First of all, they got to be a horseman. They got to be willing to work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. They got to be able to diagnose a sick cow or horse a quarter mile away. They got to be able to catch it, lay it down, and doctor it. So these are incredible skills that take a lifetime. And to be a buffalero, only thing that's required, you have to be a dumbass. You have to be willing to get in a pen full of wild, frightened buffalo, try to sort them. The only two skills that are required is to jump out of the way and climb an 8-foot fence real fast. So I just wanted to clear that up so my cowboy friends didn't think I thought I was better than them, because we're not. So anyway, this is a story about dead buffalo in the horse barn out there. So I had a girlfriend out there, and she started coming out every weekend with her kids, and they were about 4 and maybe 10 at that time. The little girl was 9. I ended up raising her till she was 18. Sweet little gal. But this is when I first got to know them. And they'd come out every weekend. We'd have so much fun. We'd ride horses and chase buffalo. They'd help me fix fence, learn some skills, and we had a good old time. So one weekend they were out there, and me and their mom were just sitting around, I think, in the backyard of the house. And the little girl was out playing behind the horse barn. And all of a sudden she went hysterical, screaming and crying and full-blown panic. And she come out of the wrong door of the barn, and there's that 8-foot woven wire fence like we had in all the alleyways. And she's trying to climb up that wobbly old fence, and the weave in that wire was no bigger than this, and she couldn't get her fingers or her feet through. And this poor child is absolutely out of her mind with fear. So we run over to the fence, and we're trying to calm her down, but she's not having any of that, of course. And she finally makes it to the top, and she just dove onto her mother's head. She was so panicked. Finally got her settled down, and this poor child was hysterical. And all she kept saying was, dead buffalo in the barn, dead buffalo in the barn. So I went into the barn to check it out. And this was an old horse barn. We had never used it in all my time there. And the floor was about 8 inches deep and old dried dirt and dust and horse manure, just powdery dry. But we did use the loft, the hay mow up above. When we'd slaughter buffalo, we'd get the skulls boiled at the slaughterhouse, and then we'd set them up in there to dry. And they had a pretty good value, the skulls, once they were cleaned up. So maybe once a month, I'd go in, carry skulls up the ladder, and put them in the loft to dry. So I go into that old dry barn, and nothing looks out of the ordinary. Open the door, turn on the light, and there's 3 or 4 old horse stalls in there. And at some point, somebody built a little bitty pen in the corner out of 3-inch round lodge pole. Wouldn't hold anything, but they probably had a goat or a sheep in there at one time. I look in that little bitty pen, and there's 2 dead buffalo cows laying there, one on top of the other, and a calf cut out of the belly of the top one, and it's laying on top of the second buffalo and has that good old orange-red triangle painted on its side. I'm standing there in this barn looking around. This can't be 60 feet from my house, and I'd never heard a thing, and I don't know how long they'd been in there, of course. But let me tell you a little bit about handling buffalo. I don't think buffalo are inherently mean. I have more respect for buffalo than a grizzly bear. They're just so ferocious when they're upset. But I don't think they're inherently mean. But when you have them in a domestic situation on a ranch and you're forcing them to go through gates and stuff, they get so frightened that their only way to preserve their lives is to kill you. And that's what they're happy to do any given day. And a creative buffalo can stave off hours of boredom with a human body. They'll get a horn in you and flip you in the air, and they try to run over and smack you again before you hit. And they'll punch 34 holes in you. And then they get bored with throwing you in the air. They'll just put their forehead right down on you and start going along the ground and just rub you out. And I think the worst thing about death by buffalo is you weigh about 800 pounds by the time they put you in a coffin, and it takes 15 men to carry it into the graveyard with all the rocks and dirt they mix in with you. So they're frightening. They're frightening to work, and you got to be on your best game when you are messing with them. And if you had 250 of the best cowboys in the world, you would never get one buffalo through a dark door into a barn. So I'm standing in there looking at these 2 dead buffaloes, or 3, counting the calf. And I'm just stunned. How in the world did anybody get these buffalo in this barn? And like I said, the floor in that barn was that deep in dry dirt and dust and old manure, just powder. And if they'd have dragged those dead buffalo in there, there'd have been a drag mark 6 feet wide. And if they'd have pushed them in, which I can't imagine anyone could do, there'd have been footprints. There wasn't a mark in there. The only thing there was my old tracks from maybe a month earlier when I'd put some of those fresh killed skulls up in the loft. So I'm looking around at this and thinking, how in the world? And the only thing I could think of is they were levitated through that door and over the rails, and those rails wouldn't have held a big angry dog. They weren't no bigger than that. And they were 4 feet high, and somehow they got those buffalo over those rails and stacked them in that barn like that. And I mean to tell you, that was pretty disturbing too. And I certainly understand why my little stepdaughter was hysterical when she come upon that thing.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
Man.
That kind of reminds me of the story from Skinwalker Ranch. I don't even remember that story. The Gorman said that was it bulls or cattle that they had? They were put.
Yeah, they were the scimitars or whatever they were called. Yeah, they're bulls.
Yeah. Yeah, they put them in a barn and they didn't know how they got them all in there. They were all stuffed in there.
Yeah.
And like at first they were all in a trance, and then when they snapped out of it, they were just rushing out.
Mm-hmm. That happened with wasn't it like a trailer as well, where they put like 3 or 4 of them in there when you can barely fit like one or something like that? Like I thought it happened a couple of times where there was like there's no reasonable explanation for how like somebody so quickly could have put so many animals into like such a small space, and they were calm until they opened the door and tried to get them out, and they snapped out of it, and they lost control of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is creepy though. Yeah, telekinesis or some kind of technology, levitation technology, something to move these things around without. Well, first it's quickly, silently, and you're not disturbing any ground underneath it. Doing it.
Or teleportation.
Or teleportation. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what these orbs can do? If that's another thing that they can do, is transport things from one place to another.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you about this, but there was an episode of Coast to Coast where there's this guy that's investigating this location, like undisclosed location. He doesn't tell anybody where it's at because he doesn't want people going and messing with it.
Yeah.
But it's a place they call. I'm trying to remember what they called it. Not the prairie. It's a different term. But anyways, it's like a field of some type.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like weird things happening. So he went out there with an investigation team, and one of his guys was off in a distance, past some trees, over a hill, and they're looking through their FLIR scopes so they can see heat signatures. And they're calling everybody back over, like trying to get the camp back together again. And they see this guy walking, and there's an orb flies towards him. He disappears. So they're calling him. They're like, "Hey, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm coming." And he's somebody like hundreds of yards away, and then instantly, an instant, he's like just like 30, 40 yards away. He reappears and he's walking. And so they're asking him, like, how did you get here? We saw an orb fly over to you. He goes, I was just walking. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you mean. But it was like he didn't notice the difference. But everybody else saw him on their FLIR cameras disappear hundreds of yards away and reappear in an instant, just a few yards away. And they think like that orb grabbed him and brought him over here.
Yeah. Why? That's so weird.
Just to mess with them? Just
to mess with them? Like, like just like us picking up a snail and moving it, like across the street or something. Like,
right. And
it's traveling light speed, and
that also gives a credibility to the idea that these things are like a type of vehicle or transportation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think it's more than that. I think whatever those orbs are, I think they're alive as well.
I think so. Yeah, they've got some kind of intelligence to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so. Is this like a forested area, or is it actually like a prairie kind of a?
Yeah, there's trees. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I'm not going to remember right now, but
yeah,
if I ever find the episode, I'll send it to you so you can check it out if you want. There's some interesting stories that come from it. They're calling it like another type of Skinwalker Ranch. Like strange things are happening out there. People are seeing.
How long ago was this? Do you remember?
I listened to this probably about a year to year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. That's another possibility for the missing 411 stuff.
Yeah.
Because people just kind of disappear out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I want to say this is near like the Appalachian Mountains, like that region.
Yeah. That's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Scary for sure, though. I don't think I'll ever go out there.
Yeah, there's lots of crazy stuff out there.
Yeah. For as much as I do want to find some of this stuff out, like I don't know that I would put myself in that area.
Right. Like we said, it's fun to speculate, but it's nothing you want to interact with.
Armchair analyst.
Yes. Armchair investigator.
Sends other people out there. You tell me what you found.
Yeah. I'll be the man in the chair.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And then that orange triangle shows up again.
Yep. You ready for the next one?
Yeah, I think I'm ready for the next one.
Saw you thinking, so I didn't know if you were going to say something else or not.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about like I'm still thinking about what that triangle could really mean. Like, we I don't know. I'll sit on it for a little bit. We'll talk about it more after this video.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Evening, folks. Got more Alien Chronicles for you here tonight. I'm going to call this one Hunting Aliens with the FBI. And this is another pretty unnerving story for me to have the FBI show up. So, yeah, it was just a typical summer day, and I'd been out fencing or doing something all day, but I'd been away from the house all day long, come back just about dusk. And, I was more than a little apprehensive about strangers or vehicles or lights or anything else after the things that went on out there. So I just come into the yard and pull up in front of my house to park, and there's this guy in front of my personal truck, and I had an SUV parked next to it, and he's messing with the front of my trucks. And I jumped out pretty aggressive. I'm usually a pretty easygoing guy, but after having aliens in your refrigerator and doing all this weird stuff, you get a little more intense. Boy, I bowled up and come running out of that truck and asked this guy, "Who the hell are you and what are you doing with my trucks?" And he opens up his pocket and pulls out an FBI badge and just knocked the wind out of me, of course. And I said, "What the hell are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I'm putting trackers on your vehicle." And "What do you mean you're putting trackers on my vehicle?" So he explained what was going on. He said they'd been sent out there because they'd heard about all this stuff that was going on. He never said the word alien, but he said, "We're here to see if we can help find out what's killing your buffalo." I thought, great. I said, "What are those things on my truck?" And they weren't any bigger than a pencil eraser. And they were these little magnetic things. He just dropped them and they stuck to the bumper. And it turns out they had a fixed wing aircraft up all night, 12 hours, flying circles around that 15,000 acre ranch. And they had some kind of receiver in there. 2 FBI, well, 1 agent and 1 pilot. I don't know if he was an agent. And they flew around that ranch all night. And these little trackers on our personal vehicles were for them to tell if we were friendlies or bad guys if I was out driving around or headed to town or whatever. So we talked a little bit, and he was very reticent. He didn't want to give me any information, and a lot of cops are like that, and I've dealt with the FBI a time or two in my sordid past, and they're just not chatty. So he tells me what they're doing, and there was also 2 more agents, both in a separate pickup truck, dressed like old cowboys driving the county roads all night. So they were seriously there to help us. So I didn't think too much about it. He goes out to the shop, and that's where he's going to hide all night. And I go in, go on back to bed. And next morning, and get up and talk with him a little bit more. And I'm telling him stories of what's happened and this and that. And he loosened up a little bit. And he managed to make this one remark to me somewhere in that conversation. He says, "If you catch one of them sons of bitches, we'll have them all in jail by dark." And I bowed up and got in his face, and I said, "You son of a bitch, you know what's happening out here, don't you?" And he realized he'd kind of overstepped his bounds, and he just clammed up. And I said a few more things, and he walked over to that shop, got in his car, drove away. I never saw him again. I never saw any of those other agents that were driving around, and that was it with the FBI. So I go in the house and I call my buddy Wally, the sheriff in town, because he'd been out there for 3, 4, 5 years helping us chase those lights at night. Get him on the phone, and I said, "Wally, what's going on?" I said, "What do you know about all these FBI guys being out here camped out all night?" And he goes, "What?" He was incredulous that nobody had told him a word. He had no idea that there were federal agents out there that night. And he was kind of incensed about that because a sheriff in a county has a lot more power than most people realize. A sheriff is the only law enforcement in the country that can actually shut down an interstate highway. FBI can't do that. A metropolitan police department can't do it, but a sheriff can. So he was a little bent out of shape that nobody told him, and nothing come of it. I mean, they were there for one night. He kind of let the bean slip a little bit, and I called him out on it, and that was it with the FBI, and nobody ever knew who called him. The office in town, the owners, the ranch manager, nobody had a clue. Hell, as far as I know, they might have been fake FBI, but anyway, that's the FBI story. So about a week goes by after that, and these 2 guys pull in the yard, and they're obviously in a rental vehicle. And again, I'm not being very friendly. I go up and go, "What do you want and why are you here?" And they showed me their credentials, and I said, "Why are you here?" And they said, "A federal agency has flown us out here, and we want to take necropsy samples on a mutilated buffalo." And I'm thinking, well, who are you guys? And they showed me their paperwork, and they were both professors from a university in Michigan. I can't remember which one, but these guys were the real deal, and laid back and comfortable chatting with me and stuff. And so I tell them, I said, your timing's impeccable. We just had a buffalo cow mutilated about 3 nights ago, and she's still laying out there. So I got in the truck and I said, follow me and we'll go out there and get what you need. So I took an axe and a chainsaw and I split the jaw open and opened it up. And of course, I always took the tongues out of bulls, but this was a cow, so they wanted samples of her tongue. And she had that elliptical cut with her reproductive organs gone. I went ahead and opened her up and pulled all her guts out, and they took liver and spleen and all kinds of tissue samples. Diaphragm, they wanted part of the diaphragm muscle. So we get all this put together for them in their little sealed forensic bags. And I said, you guys want to see all the rest of the dead ones? Because, I don't know, probably 4 years worth of dead buffalo. We just drive them over to a coulee and drag them in there and let them lay. Now, the funny thing about them dead buffalo, anything else that you died, a buffalo that broke its neck in the squeeze chute or hit by lightning or whatever, you drag them into that boneyard and the coyotes would come in and eat them. And of course, the blowflies would lay eggs and they'd be covered with maggots. Well, every one of those mutilated buffalo that had mutilations and the orange triangles never had a fly lay an egg, and I never saw a single bite mark. And you see all these other alien stories where the sheriff comes out and he goes, oh, this is caused by a predator, and this is a coyote bite, and this is a raccoon. Well, I don't know how they tell, and I've been cutting up dead animals for many years, but they never touch these mutilated ones. And what would happen, the skin would just dry on them, and they ended up looking like Egyptian mummies after a year or two. All the tissue still in there dried, but nothing ever took a bite of those mutilated buffalo. And for a fly not to lay an egg on a dead animal is beyond me. But anyway, I show them all that stuff, and they're all happy, got their samples and stuff, and they go home. And I said, the only thing I'll ask you guys is contact me. Let me know what you find out, because, obviously the FBI didn't. And we had so many different people out there over the years. Somebody brought us a medicine man because they thought maybe the Indians were upset about having buffalo behind a fence instead of running wild. The buffalo said, none of these symbols have anything to do with our tribe. And I forget all the experts that came out there and never figured anything out. So about a month or two goes by, and one of those professors contacts me, God bless him. And he said, yeah, we ran a lot of tests. And he says, we got some pretty strange results. And I said, what are they? Well, he gives me all these medical terms, which meant nothing to me. But he said the blood was toxic. Well, if you run a buffalo hard enough, or an antelope, any animal that runs long enough till its heart finally explodes, their blood is toxic, and you don't want to eat that meat. So the blood's toxic, and I'm thinking, well, that could be aliens, or it could just be run to death or whatever. And then he talked about a lot of the organs, how this was different, that was different, crystalline structures in the meat and stuff I didn't understand. And we get to the end of his explanation, and he says, well, one thing I do want to tell you, that elliptical cut on the belly of those cows, I told you in other stories, one side was clean as a whistle, no blood, cut with a scalpel, and the other side was crusty and burnt and ragged all the way down. He said, we tested 4 different places because he took that whole piece of hide out. And he said, we don't know what caused it, but when hemoglobin is heated to over 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit, something happens to its structure. And he said every sample we had shows that hemoglobin was heated to over 1,100 degrees. So I said, well, who has a laser like that? Was it a laser? And he goes, we assume it was to generate that kind of heat. And I said, okay, who has those kind of lasers? He said, well, we did some checking, and the U.S. Army has one that'll generate that kind of power, but it takes 2 semi and flatbed trailers to haul it out in the field. And like I said, we never found a track. So again, just another one of the great mysteries of the Alien Chronicles. And God bless those guys for getting back to me and giving me that info. So then another week or two goes by, all in this same summer, and this old cowboy calls me up, and he's older than I am now. He's an old duffer, and he's getting married for the first time, and he wants me to come to his bachelor party at a ranch. And I just love this old man to death, but You got to understand, here's two young guys living on $1 million buffalo ranch with a $3 million herd, driving new pickup trucks, new tractors. Them old ranchers that were all our neighbors, they hated us. They've been living hand to mouth, working 7 days a week, 380 days a year, their whole lives. And we come in with all this money. It wasn't my money, but they put this ranch together, and we got the best of everything. And of course, our buffalo always getting loose and tearing down their fences and running through their cows. So I don't think we were very popular with all the neighbor ranchers anyway. But I wanted to go to this bachelor party, so I did. And I thought, boy, am I going to take some heat? Because you got to remember, all these stories with the sheriff's department involved ended up in the newspaper because that's what small towns do on their police report. Everything's in there. So everybody in the country knew we had aliens and lights and mutilations. And, you know, a lot of people look askance at you and don't believe in any of that. So I go to this bachelor party thinking I'm going to get beat up bad by all these old rancher types tonight. And I get talking to my buddy that's getting married, and he introduces me around, and they're all very friendly. And finally, the subject comes up. And one of them looks at me and says, "Well, hell," he says, "that mutilation stuff doesn't have anything to do with you guys and your buffalo." He says, "That crap's been going on here for the 35 years that I've grown up on this place." And I just, what? And then they all started telling stories. And of course, nobody had buffalo back then, but there was not a rancher in that bachelor party. And I'll bet there was 18, 20 men in there, all in their 60s or older, and every one of them had a story to tell about cattle or horse mutilations. So anyway, this stuff's been going on a lot longer than the 9 years I tell you about these spooky buffalo encounters.
Pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah, really interesting stuff. I'd be curious to hear what those other stories were.
Yeah.
What those other people were telling.
Yeah, they should do like a documentary on that. Just go around talking to all the people in that region.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the last one.
That's the last one, man.
Yeah.
So, when did he put that one out?
That was 3 years ago.
3 years ago. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a shame there's not more of those.
Yeah, a month ago he came out. I'll play this video because I don't remember what he said about him, but this one just came out a month ago. He's been gone for 3 years. I'll wait till it's ready to play. Cat commercial's done.
Yeah.
Now, I thought it was interesting when they were talking about the laser.
Yeah.
The hemoglobin got heated to 1100 degrees.
I would have assumed that it would just evaporate, like anything like that would just get evaporated at that heat. I didn't know that it would change or do something at that temperature.
Guess it crystallizes. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. 1100 degrees.
Yeah, I'll play this 1 minute video, and then we'll go back to talking about the last one. It's kind of an update from him.
Howdy, folks. I'm back. It's been 2.5 years since I posted any of these YouTube videos. I've been busy. I moved up north. I raised and trained bird dogs. Life just got in the way, but I had so much fun telling these. I'm going to post more here. Some of the right people saw this. One thing, I'd do another. I ended up being in a TV show. You might have seen it by now, called UFO Cowboys on Roku. And it was a blast. We had so much fun. It was sort of based on my Buffalo Ranch stories and some new investigations. But I hope everybody tunes into that and wants to keep watching what I do, because I am having the time of my life, and I'm going to keep doing these videos.
He's got an Etsy shop.
Yeah, he does.
Well, all right.
So there you go. That's the last update I saw about anything UFO related. He has other stories on there that are pretty interesting. There's 2 of them that I listened to where he talks about how his neighbor saved his life twice. Otherwise, he would have died. But yeah, those are interesting stories. Again, his link is in the description below. Go like his channel. Go subscribe. He's a great storyteller. Show your support to him. He's a great guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems like a very down to earth, very, very mellow dude.
But no, yeah, what'd you think about that FBI one with them tracking them and flying overhead?
Yeah, that really interesting stuff. Like, I don't know anything about the FBI other than they are very rude. That's all I've heard about the FBI.
Yeah.
But I think so. For those of you who don't know, I used to work at Cabela's, and occasionally the FBI would, and I mean like once, twice a year tops, FBI would like reach out like, "Hey, we need you to run a trace on whatever gun you sold to whoever." From what I heard, they were very curt people. They don't like talking. So I believe that story.
Yeah. Did you ever deal with them?
No, personally, no. I never dealt with them. They would call whenever I wasn't part of the gun counter stuff. Whenever they would call, but I knew people who did. Like it was mostly my bosses who would deal with them. More often than not, we'd get an email from them to run traces on whatever, but occasionally we'd get a phone call. But yeah, no, that's very on target for what I heard about the FBI. But it's good to know that they're consistent at least.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder, if they really did know what was going on, like how much information they had. Did they have all of it or just some of it?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I would imagine that they've probably come across this in other places, not just at that ranch.
Sure.
But I'm sure that's where they collected some of their data from.
I'll have to go work for the FBI to find out. Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. Though they dropped those little trackers on them. I didn't know they were that small. He said they were like the size of an eraser on a pencil. I always understood they were probably more closer like the size of a fist or something. They were like chunky little things. And then I don't know how many years ago that was, what his time frame is, but I didn't think technology was that advanced yet.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not sure how long ago it was. He did say he was younger though.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying, like how advanced is their technology, and then like the higher up in the ranks you go, like their technology gets to be like years and years, like decades ahead of what the regular civilians get in their GM side of Walmart.
Right.
General merchandising. So interesting stuff. Like I was saying, like I don't know. It makes me wonder.
Yeah.
And people wonder why I like you distrust the government, like, but they don't say things they probably should say.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. So what did you think of his collection of stories?
Oh, I love them. I've been a fan of his for a while now, and I'm really glad that he's back and telling stories again. Yeah. Even the non-alien stuff, like I said, he's just a great storyteller.
Yeah.
I remember hearing one where he got struck by lightning. Like he was out by himself and the ground got struck and it just knocked him out. And he woke up and he had like the taste of copper pennies in his mouth, and he was just in a bad way and trying to get back home in the dark. And it's a really interesting story.
Yeah.
Also getting attacked by a bear. Like, I just I love the stories.
Yeah.
No, but these are really cool because you always hear about Skinwalker Ranch, and you don't think, well, these are happening at other places. These types of things, aren't happening in other places, but they are. They happen in other places, and they're just not as public or as popular, I guess, as Skinwalker Ranch.
Right. I wonder how many other places that aren't like, there aren't ranches, like maybe just cabins. Maybe it does seem to have to be like a more remote place. It doesn't happen with a lot of like, light pollution or whatever. But they like the solitary places.
Yeah, or even like in a desert, what's happening out in a desert where nobody's watching.
Yeah.
And you hear about like that story about the Joshua Tree place, with the death cult, the portals opening up there. Like that's a fascinating story, but
we'll need to cover that one some point.
Yeah. So while I was playing that last video, I did look up the meaning behind triangles.
Mm-hmm.
And in ancient Egypt, it's a Ka symbol. This is the Ka symbol is an ancient Egyptian symbol of soul, spirit, life, death, rebirth, and afterlife, youth, vigor, and eternity. The Ka is simply the life force or soul given by the gods to mankind, but still remains independent from the person as a consciousness that could lead a person to the path of righteousness. So it sounds like it's just like a symbol for the soul.
Yeah. Now, what would be the purpose of putting that symbol for a soul on a dead animal or an animal that you sacrificed? Potentially, I guess.
Right.
Curious. Creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, then I found this other thing that says the equilateral triangle is a symbol of the Holy Trinity. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost are no longer represented in human form or as a dove, but by this geometrical figure, the God logo. See, God is represented as a triangle symbolizing the Trinity, the sacred tetragrammaton. Yahweh is written in the center. But yeah, it's almost like mocking life. If it's a symbol of life, if it's a symbol of the soul, it's almost like mocking it, saying, no soul found here, or it's dead,
Yeah. But again, I kind of go back to like, what was it made out of? Like, did they do it? And it doesn't sound like they did it with its own blood because it became orange. It was like an orangish red paint that they used. What was it? Like, did they find? I wonder if those professors ever found out what that was, or if they even bothered to look into it.
Right.
But yeah, that symbolism is interesting. Like you said, that it seems more like a mockery or some kind of affront to the Godhead or the idea of a soul. You're just meat. You got that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I know you were asking earlier too about the color of the triangle, like the red, orange. What does that represent? And the only thing I could think of is, the Passover, like when they put the blood on the door.
Put the blood on the door, yeah,
to protect from death. So again, it just kind of goes back, for me, anyways, in my mind, a mockery of life and death. Like, there's no protection here.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you could also gather that from the fact that they went into his house and put triangles everywhere.
Yeah.
Nothing you're going to do is going to stop him. Yeah, but maybe just to drive it home some more. You're right.
And like, what's the point of putting the buffalo in the barn? Other than just to say we can.
Yeah. Yeah, so much of it seems to be just like, because we can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's more of a fear campaign on people, on humans.
Yeah.
I know people always think of aliens and think, oh, I can't wait for the aliens to come save us. And
Save us.
yeah, they're gonna, you know,
Yeah, solve all our problems.
Exactly. These intelligent forces, they're smarter than us.
Yeah.
They're gonna solve all of our problems, but they don't. Why haven't they?
Yeah.
Where's the cure for cancer? Where's the cure for COVID? Where's the cure for all these things? You know, that
Yeah.
I don't know.
And yeah, it is very presumptuous as well. Like, let's say they even were benevolent and they were of a higher intelligence. Just because they're smarter than us doesn't necessarily mean they have the answer to all of our problems. We're smarter than most of the animals here on the planet Earth, and we can't fix all of their problems. We just kind of, we just kind of let them figure it out for themselves.
No, I like how you said that. Like, intelligence does not equate benevolence. Like, it doesn't mean that they have good intentions.
Yeah.
And also, like, if a foreign country sent agents into our country to kidnap people, take them back, and then probe them, then bring them back and drop them off, would we see that as heroism?
Yeah.
Like, how is that a heroic trait? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. If someone broke into your house and kidnapped your child, and then even if they did bring them back, it does not mean that they had good intentions.
We brought them back. They're different. They're emotionally scarred for life, but they're back. They're fine.
They got chunks of metal in them now. They're going to set off alarms everywhere they go.
We're tracking them. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it is also hard for me to believe like any of them could be benevolent if they're doing this kind of stuff, or if at least the same kind of like species or whatever they're associated with, whoever's performing these rituals almost, it seems like.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. Any other commentary on those videos?
No, I will be thinking about them for a while though. He's a very charismatic storyteller. Because of that, I think the stories stay with you a little longer because of that. Like, just on the facts of the stories, they're interesting, but the way he tells them to you, they kind of, it embeds into you a little longer, I think.
Yeah.
They stay with you. So no, I'll be thinking about them. They are interesting stories, and I probably will look into like other ranches and other areas or something that might be experiencing this kind of stuff. I'm curious to learn how common this stuff is among, the isolation areas.
Yeah.
Which, that's always fun stuff to do. Research a little bit. Which I was going to bring this up also at the beginning. I forgot to, but Amanda caught a little bit of our show last week when German or GJ sent us the comments about that bird, the glowing bird.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She sent me two links. One of them didn't work for me, and then the other one was more like a mythical creature. But I looked into the one that didn't work initially, but she said there's puffins around there in the Houston area. So I looked into what a puffin is, and probably not what it was, almost certainly not what it was, but it is interesting that, so there's this bird that has these markings on its beak, and they glow slightly whenever they do like a mating dance kind of a thing. And if you hold a black light up to it, now I'm willing to bet that GJ's kids weren't running around with a black light chasing birds doing a mating dance, but it is interesting to know that, like, what do you call it? Bioluminescence isn't restricted to just fish and, bugs. It can also happen with birds. So, that's another thing to kind of look into, I guess, is a bioluminescent bird possibly glowing throughout it. I think its entire body is what he was saying, but yeah. Just wanted to kind of put that out there. If he ever sees this, that's one thing that I saw.
Yeah, but the puffins are small, so
yeah, they're very small. They're like little, like tiny miniature toucans, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not what it was, but it's interesting to know that there are birds that have bioluminescent things on them.
Yeah. I think it was a demon bird.
It was probably Pájaro Diablo.
El pájaro, el diablo.
Exactly.
Azul.
Yeah.
My Spanish is terrible. But that's interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. Possibilities, I guess.
Yeah. Well, anyways, yeah.
So now, do you want to jump over to my screen?
Yeah, sure. Let me close off my other windows here. Give me a second. Hope you guys watched this and enjoyed it. I know our last video got 27 views, which is not a lot by more like most people's standards, but it's a lot for us.
We have very low standards.
We have very low standards, very minimalistic standards here.
That's right.
So yeah, I appreciate you guys watching that. Hopefully, if you watched that first one, that's the reason you're back for the second one, because great stories. And if you like the creepy and the dark and mysterious and aliens and Fortean type stuff,
Hobnobbery,
we hope that you like this.
This is our Fun My Comic campaign for Tricks and Treats Volume 1 Second Chance. So we ran this last year, and we are running this 2 years ago. My God.
Yes.
The time. It's flying.
It is. We're older.
No. I thought it was only 1 year older. So this is from 2 years ago. We decided to run it one more time. If you guys didn't get a chance to back it the first time, if you just found us, you want a chance to read our first 6 stories from the first 3 issues that we published, plus 1 bonus story, this is your chance to do it. So I'll play this video, and can I grow this first? I can. All right, and this is a brief synopsis of the stories.
From the pages of Issue 1. In Land of Dagon, an ordinary cruise ship is met with an unusual storm that tosses the ship into chaos. At the end of it, the ship and its crew find themselves stranded in a strange land. The captain and a few crew members set out to search for help, but what they find instead horrifies them. In Tree of Life, a professor believes he has found the key to immortality. He hires a 2-man security team to accompany him in his search for the Tree of Life. Their adventure takes a dark turn when their plane is forced down in a mysterious jungle. The team finds they are not alone, and worse yet, deathly wrong about the treasure they hope to find. From the pages of Issue 2, in More Than They Can Chew, a young group of friends are lost in the backwoods of Oklahoma and being hunted by cannibal psycho hillbillies, who in turn are being hunted by a Bigfoot, because their matriarch is a manifestation of pure evil. In The Unknown Incident at Kecksburg, Otis Knapp is a retired PSY operative who is called back into action to help the government communicate and assess the intentions of a Bigfoot and gray alien that were found at the crash site of what is known as the Kecksburg Incident. From the pages of Issue 3, in Mulrooney, Clara travels to her great-uncle's castle to help him manage the property for a season. The castle's dark past is revealed, and her very presence invokes the things that once resided in the old manor. In Mine, a single mother struggles against her verbally abusive father for her son's devotion. After her father passes, things don't improve as she had hoped, and her son begins to talk to her dead father through a tin can phone. She soon learns that those conversations were not a coping mechanism and fights to save her son before it's too late.
Ta-da!
Sweet.
So, yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's our book, and then these are a few of the pages from the book, which you just saw, but we can look through the tiers very quickly. Which $6 is the digital version of it. 25, you get a bunch of stuff. Actually, you get the book, bookmark, button, and silicone bracelet, and stickers, which is always my favorite part of backing a campaign. Stickers.
The stickers.
$40, you get a double pack, so everything times two, which is really helpful if like you live in a place where shipping tends to be very high. You want to split it with a buddy, you know, it helps with the cost, which you're already saving, I think, $10 by getting this. If you, instead of ordering two of these, you can just order this double pack. You get $10 off, plus you can split the shipping costs. And then $55 for this one, which is a sketch and a sketch commission and the book and all that fun stuff by Ben. And then a sketch commission by me and all of the fun stuff as well. And there we go. Trick or treat bag. This is the big one. This is the one that comes with everything, including a sketch from Ben, a sketch from myself, commissions, and poster. And you get 3 single floppies of the initial issues that we released before
the
original run. So you can have them if you're a collector. That's the thing for you if you like getting original art from people that really like making it. That's the bag for you as well. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what we've got. The link is in the description, I believe. So
it is.
Click on that. You can browse this at your leisure, and yeah, just take in the eye candy.
Yeah, I do want to add that there is an expiration date on the sketch tiers.
Yeah.
That is expiring on September 9th. It's not showing up on there, so yeah. But scroll down. Yeah. Scroll down to where our samples are, and I did put a note down there.
Okay.
Right above that.
Oh, above this. Okay.
Right there, yeah. Sketch rewards will expire on September 9th to allow us time to complete work to ship by 10/31/23.
Yep. There you go.
Yep. So get your order in if you want to sketch from us by September 9th, and then you'll have till September 14th to let us know what you would like commissioned.
And this is obviously the stuff that we can do. This is one that we did. So if this is also something you'd be interested in, it's a 2-piece, a diptych, I guess you could call it. Yeah. I did this side, then did this side, and then we met at OFCON, and he did the arm on my side, and I did the arm on his side. And now they connect together. They join their powers combined to become something pretty nifty.
Join our powers combined. Yeah, that was a fun commission to do.
It really was, yeah.
Thanks, GJ. Yeah.
The man.
He is the man. Well, cool. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We appreciate your support. Please like and subscribe. And if you could, share the campaign. If you can't support us financially, support us by spreading the word.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everybody, for watching, and join us next time.
Yep. We'll see you guys later. Have a good day.
Stay spooky.